Good morning, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. This is Rich again, back for your first video blog of the day for Monday, November 2nd, 2015. Around 5:40 in the morning, Berwick, Massachusetts. The sun's going to be coming up in about a half hour or so. It's going to be a warm day, highs in the low 60s and stuff. Going to be 60s and 70s this week, which is pretty good for this time of year because we don't get too many 60 and 70 degree days on a consistent basis. And I heard the weather pattern for at least the first half of November is going to be warmer than normal. We'll still have a few days about average temperature, but the trend is for warmer than average temperatures. That's good. We don't need a cold snap or snow in November because that makes the winter longer and longer. Some news to report. The Denver Broncos are now 7-0. There's still 3 undefeated teams left in the NFL right now. The Patriots, the Bengals, and the Broncos. If the Panthers win tonight against the Colts, then it'll be 4 undefeated teams. I don't think this could be the latest that at least 3 or 4 teams have been undefeated this late in the NFL season, which is pretty good. And the Kansas City Royals beat the New York Mets by a score of 7-2 in 12 innings to win the 2015 World Series. Salvador Perez, catcher of the Royals, won World Series MVP. He batted .368 in the series. The Mets had leads in 3 of the 4 games the Kansas City Royals won into the late innings and stuff, but the Mets blew all these opportunities. Royals came back and stuff. A great pitching performance by Matt Harvey in Game 5 was put to ruins and stuff because he started to pitch the 9th inning, but he was taken out after the first walk and stuff, and that was it. So this was a great season for the Mets. It's too bad it had to end like this, but congratulations to the Kansas City Royals, first World Series champions since 1985. That's about it on the news. My first video subject of the day is the continuation of the top 10 list of everything and anything. I reached the top 10 greatest CBS sports announcers of all time. This is a very impressive list. CBS over the years have had some of the greatest sports announcers ever with household names and stuff. And here they are. Number 10 on this list is Jack Whitaker. Jack was with the CBS from the 1950s through the early 1980s. He hosted the PGA Tour on CBS and also the Masters tournament. He did NFL football, including calling the New York Giants, and he called the first Super Bowl and stuff. Towards the end of his tenure in CBS, he was the commentator for like NFL games, for like he did commentary about the state of the NFL. First host of the NFL Today was Jack Whitaker. Number 9 on this list, the top 10 greatest CBS sports announcers of all time, Frank Lieber. Frank worked for CBS for 22 years, between 1963 through 1985. He did a lot of work with the NFL and stuff, calling Cleveland Browns games at first, and then working like as the number 2 NFL announcer for many years. He also did bowling, soccer, called the 17th hole of the Masters on CBS during the Masters tournament, and he did NBA games and college basketball games. He passed away 1985 while jogging in May of 1985. Number 8 on this list of the greatest CBS sports announcers of all time, Jack Buck. Jack Buck worked for CBS for many years in the 60s, calling NFL games. He called Cowboys games and Bears games. He also called Super Bowl IV with Pat Summerall, and later on he was the number 1 announcer when Major League Baseball came to CBS in 1990. He did 2 World Series, 2 All-Star games, and 2 National League Championship series for CBS. His famous quote was, "That's a winner." Number 7 on this list of the greatest CBS sports announcers of all time, Dick Stockton. Dick worked for CBS for over 20 years. He first worked in the late 60s as a freelance like sideline reporter for NFL games. He actually did one NHL game for CBS when they had the NHL in 1972. He came back to CBS in the late 70s, posting CBS Sports Spectacular, became the NFL announcer, the #1 NBA play-by-play announcer. He dabbled in college basketball and stuff. He did Major League Baseball games for CBS for about 3 years. Comes in at number 7. Number 6 on this list of the top 10 CBS sports announcers of all time, Vern Lundquist. Vern's been with CBS on and off since 1982. He called NFL games, NBA games, college basketball, college football, the voice of the SEC. He did a lot of figure skating and other stuff for the CBS Sports Spectacular. Comes in at number 6. Number 5 on this list of the top 10 CBS sports announcers of all time, Ray Scott. Ray Scott was the #1 voice of the NFL on CBS for many years in the 60s and 70s, calling a couple of Super Bowls. He also did Green Bay Packers games for CBS back in the 50s and 60s. Number 4 on this list of the greatest CBS sports announcers of all time, Greg Gumbel. Greg Gumbel had started working in CBS in the late 1980s, hosting College Football Today and doing some NFL and NBA games. Eventually, he hosted the NFL Today on CBS from 1990 through 93. And he also was doing college basketball tournament play-by-play, hosted the 1994 Winter Olympic Games, did some Major League Baseball games on CBS. When CBS got the NFL back in 1998, Greg Gumbel returned after a 4-year tour of duty for NBC Sports, becoming the #1 play-by-play announcer for the NFL on CBS with Phil Simms. He's hosted the NCAA basketball tournament for CBS since then, and he's also, when they had NASCAR, he hosted it. Number 3 on this list of the greatest CBS sports announcers of all time, Brent Musburger. Brent Musburger was the face of CBS Sports in the 70s and 80s, known for hosting the NFL Today and also the strongman competition on CBS Sports Spectacular. Was also the #1 voice of the NBA on CBS, and also did college basketball and college football, and hosted the Masters and the U.S. tennis tournament. His famous quote, "You are looking live at any sporting event," or maybe sometimes he should have said, "You are looking live at Max 2 in Billerica, Massachusetts." Number 2 on this list of the greatest CBS sports announcers of all time, Jim Nantz, currently the voice of CBS Sports and the best broadcaster of CBS Sports right now. Jim's been with CBS since 1985 when he hosted College Football Today. Originally, that job was going to go to Bob Lobel, who was a long-time sports director, WBZ TV4 in Boston, but Bob rejected it, and Jim Nantz got it instead, and he's been the voice of CBS Sports and the face since then, doing NBA, college football, college basketball, golf, tennis, the NFL and stuff. So Jim Nantz is at number 2. It could have been Bob Lobel as the face of CBS Sports. You never know if it could have happened. And number 1 on the best CBS sports announcer of all time, Pat Summerall. He's at number 1. Pat was an NFL kicker for the Giants, the Bears, the Cardinals in the 50s and early 60s. Then he transitioned to sportscasting as first color man for NFL games on CBS. He had so many partners, including Jack Bach and Ray Scott. Towards the early 70s, in the early 70s, he did some sports announcing play-by-play of ABA on the CBS Sports Spectacular. He interviewed Bobby Orr when he scored that game-winning goal in 1970. And he also did tennis and hosted golf. He was the voice of the NBA when CBS got the sports, the NBA package in 1973. He called 1974 NBA Finals between the Bucks and Celtics. In 1975, he switched from doing color to play-by-play of NFL games. He had his first color man was Tom Brookshire, and eventually he was paired with John Madden for many, many years. And Pat was the best CBS sports announcer of all time. That's about it on that. And I'll be back later with 2 more video blogs. One will be about MBTA Bus Route 1 that goes from Dudley Square to Harvard Square via Mass Ave. And the last one will be about the late great ABC sports announcer, longtime host of ABC's Wide World of Sports, Jim McKay. Keep calm, everybody. I'm a Julie Brennan guy. Molly Rosenblatt, a Fox 35 rocks and has nice legs. Elizabeth thought so stunning. She has nice legs as well. In the words of former WBZ sports director Bob Lobel, we are hitting the panic button. See ya.